The blade that sin bleeds war's both first wound ways. Book of Cain. The Angiris council tribunal burns. Imperius, radiance dimmed, casts his vote. Sanctuary's fate seals in cerulean eyes. Valor's he votes not in champion, but in justice as weary architect, the sin war's first wound. Unbroken, angels and yet imp demons in a sanctuary's fate dance older than seals in creation's cerulean eyes. He votes not in wrath, but sanctuary burn weary certainty. The Angiris council's verdict, a paradox. A champion who sees justice as a chain, unbroken, binding angels and demons in a dance older than creation. He votes not in wrath, but in weary certainty. If the eternal conflict has no end, then its stage must collapse. Let the heavens fracture, let the legions stasis. Imperius seeks not victory, but oblivion of final, merciful erasure of a war that cannot be won. The Archangel of Valor does not betray. He exorcises the war itself, 122 words. Light struck the crystal arch like a hammer on divine anvils. Imperius emerged whole blade sheathed, armor humming with psalms. The seventh head of Tathamet hissed in the void, but the Archangel's wings blazed hotter. Saram's shepherd's sons would later swear the sky bled gold that night, though none could name why. He walked the Angiris council as both judge and shield. 12 thrones ringed the celestial void, each carved from the bones of fallen wars. When Imperius spoke, the others stilled. His vote was not a whisper. It was a fissure. The majority had head for containment. He demanded oblivion. Sanctuary's spires had mocked the eternal conflict for millennia. Mortals bred in its shadow, blind to the blood that watered their fields. Demons in human skins, angels in demon skins, the forge never stilled screaming. Imperius had seen the truth in the arch's reflection, a world built on stolen time. His sword, Oriel's judgment, drank the light of 1,000 suns. When he swung it at Sanctuary, the stroke cleaved not stone but paradox. The crystal arch fractured, Tathamet's heads roared. Below, the shepherds of Saram watched the sky peel back, revealing not heaven but the raw, bleeding edge of creation. Valor is not the absence of doubt. It is the weight of knowing no choice is clean. Imperius did not weep as the fire fell. He had already burned. The war would end. Whether in ash or in absolution, it would end. The last thing Sanctuary heard was not a lie. It was the final hymn of the Archangel, who loved it too well to let it live. Imperius carved his name into the Angiris council with blades of fire. He led the first crusade against the abyssal pits. He shattered Mephisto's legions in the Valley of Ashes. Each victory etched his legend deeper into the halls of judgment. The Archangel of Valor became a parable of righteous wrath, but the same eyes that wept over fallen angels began to scrutinize Sanctuary's spires. What refuge, he wondered, breeds weakness as its foundation? The Eterim's whispers did not corrupt him. Lilith's rebellion only confirmed his dread. Mortals, designed to die, could never ascend. Tyrael's mercy was a balm on a festering wound. Imperius saw the truth no other angel dared voice. Sanctuary was not a shield, it was a crutch, a monument to engineered frailty. He studied the Nephilim in silence, watched them bleed, watched them break. Their hybrid blood should have been a triumph. Instead, it was a failure screaming into the void. The conflict was not a war to be won. It was a sieve, sifting the worthy from the flawed. And Sanctuary a rot at the sieve's heart. The council called it treason. Imperius called it judgment. His vote was not a betrayal, it was a verdict. Let the eternal conflict purge what Sanctuary could not. Let the flames cleanse the weakness woven into mortal bones. Let the heavens weep for a world that was never meant to endure. Why destroy what he sought to save? Because to love a thing too well is to see its death as an act of love. Imperius did not hate Sanctuary. He loved it so fiercely he could not bear its slow, agonizing decay. The Angiris council trembled as he spoke. The title Archangel of Valor still clung to him, but in that moment only one truth remained. The architect of Sanctuary's fall had once been its greatest champion. What does a surgeon do when the patient is the wound? The chamber hums with celestial static. Imperius' wings, once radiant, now cast shadows like rusted blades. His voice fractures the silence. This world is a prison for both heaven and hell. The Angiris council's light dims. 12 thrones of judgment, 12 faces of stone. No plea, no sorrow, only the weight of an argument too sharp to ignore. a counselor's halo flickers. Another's voice rasps, "Sanctuary is the scale that balances the conflict." Imperius steps forward. The floor cracks beneath his boots. "The scale is broken," he says. Its needle points only downward. The air thickens with the scent of ozone and old regret. He raises a hand, and the tribunal's archives flare scrolls of ancient wars, of heaven's first exile, of hell's unending hunger. The conflict was never about sanctuary. It was the wound that made both realms bleed. A third counselor speaks. "To destroy it is to unmake the balance." Imperius' eyes burn. Balance is a lie. This world is the tumor. Cut it and the war starves. The chamber's light dies. Shadows coil around his form. The vote begins. One by one the thrones darken. A chorus of no becomes a whisper. Then a single yes. Imperius' own. The air tastes of iron. The final tally seals the verdict. The soulstone's pulse, buried deep in Sanctuary's core, thrums louder. Imperius feels it in his bones, a dirge, a death rattle. He did not betray Sanctuary. He diagnosed its terminal truth. The surgeon's scalpel is not cruelty. It is mercy. Outside, the winds howl. The first fractures spider through the skies. Mortals will wake to a world already dying. The eternal conflict, unshackled, will devour its own shadow. Imperius watches the council's light fade. His wings, now gray as ash, fold. The price of truth is never paid by those who see it. What does a healer become when the cure is a pyre? The answer burns in the silence. But to understand Imperius's choice, you must first understand what he gave up. A name erased from celestial records. A brotherhood shattered by the unyielding weight of endless war. Imperius's blade, once raised against demons, was turned against the only home that would not fall. The eternal conflict demands not just battles, but the burial of every truth that could end it. What does a guardian become when the walls he builds are the ones that crumble? The worldstone's shatter was a thunder without echo. Mortals bled in the dust of their own salvation villages erased, fields turned to glass, the last breaths of 1,000 unborn children lost in the vacuum of revelation. Salvation Village's sanctuary never had to be, became the turn to grave that glass never could be filled. Breaths of 1,000 heavens unborn hosts did not weep. Revelation, their judgment fell like frost. Imperius, once their blade and banner, was stripped of light, his name carved from the celestial ledgers as if had never been. Yet in the void where his glory died, he found no peace, only the weight of 1,000 angels' silence, their wings folding like closed fists. They called him traitor, but they knew the truth. The cycle had no end, only a reset. He had not chosen sides. He had chosen to unmake the game. The unborn Edoram haunt the wind now. A peal never born, their songs unfinished, their blood never spilt in the wars that would never cease. Their absence is a wound in time, a hollow where Sanctuary's heart should beat. Imperius saw it all. Saw the ruins rise, the stars blink cold, the eternal gears of heaven and hell grind on, unbroken. What is justice when the scales are rigged? He had not sought victorianly to spare mortals the cost of a war that was never theirs, but the cost had a face. It had 1,000 faces screaming in the fire. It was the name he could not whisper, the sin he could not unmake. The cycle turns. The worldstone is dust, and in that dust, the seeds of another choice and author fall. The cycle's gears ground, dust of the worldstone choked the skies. Imperius stood at the precipice, sword raised not to defend, but to strike. His wings, once banners of dawn, now cast shadows like coffins. He had seen too many battles, too many souls twisted by the conflict's ancient hunger. Mortals were not flawed, they were fuel, a spark too bright to smother, yet too corrupt to save. He called them demon-tainted aberrations, not out of malice. Out of arithmetic, the eternal conflict was a ledger, every life a debt, every death a payment. Sanctuary was a low hole. A city that defied the math, hoarding he like stolen coin. Imperius closed the low hole, his blade fell, the vote was cast, the gates burned. Zealots call it betrayal, to him it was accounting, but numbers have weight, the heavier the toll, the tighter the chains. He carved his justice into the fabric of the worldenly, to find the fabric had become his shroud. The conflict did not end, it adapted. Fed on his fury, now his name is a curse. His wings, a omen, the Archangel who sought to break the cycle became its keystone. Rage forged his resolve, rage became his prison. He walks the earth, a specter of the law he once upheld, no savior, no villain. A man who saw the equation and chose the only answer he could bear. And in that choice found no peace, only the weight of every life he never let live. Imperius stands in the marble gloom of the Angiris council chamber. His shadow stretches long, but his form is fainter wraith woven from the same starlight that once burned bright in sanctuary. The tribunal's vote is carved into the celestial archives, a scar no erasure can touch. He does not move, he does not speak. The other counselors avoid his gaze, their whispers curling like smoke around his silence. The eternal conflict still rends the heavens. Angels clash with demons, and the void between worlds hungers. Imperius watches. His eyes, once blazing with the fire of justice, now hold the stillness of a frozen lake. He sees every battle, every soul shattered or saved, and measures it against the ledger only he dares to keep. Was sanctuary's fall a necessary equation? The question no longer matters, the answer is etched in the stars. Dust of shattered constellations drifts where his feet once struck the council floor. The weight of his choice has not lessened, it has calcified, a second skeleton beneath his skin. The Angiris light flickers in his gaze, dimmed but unbroken. He waits. Not for redemption, not for absolution, for the day when the cosmos will align to prove his judgment was not a wound but a cure. Until then he endures, a sentinel of cold resolve, a ghost who never left. The war screams on, he does not blink. Imperius stands where the sky cracks. Tyrael's wings cut the same shape as it in purpose, identical in cost. One voted to end sanctuary's suffering. The other to preserve its he. Both were right, both were wrong. The eternal conflict does not reward loyalty, it consumes devotion like fuel. Tyrael's faith is a shield, Imperius is a blade. One believes mortals can outgrow their sins, the other knows sin is their root. Yet the war grinds on, blind to reason, deaf to surrender. What is a shield when the enemy wears it? What is a blade when the wound cannot heal? Tyrael's defiance saved a world. Imperius' judgment ended a plague. The tribunal's chamber still echoes with their clashed woe truths, one doom, no victor, no peace, only the weight of a cycle that refuses to break. The Archangel of Valor did not betray sanctuary, he diagnosed its terminal flaw. Tyrael clings to redemption, Imperius accepts entry. Both are prisoners of a war older than their names. The conflict's hunger outlives every choice. Every war, every world, a mirror shows faces, not souls. What does it reflect when both sides weep? When does duty become a cage? The eternal conflict has no end, only the performance, the audience never leaves. The wings of Imperius still scar the heavens where they tore through the veil. His blade, unbroken, lies buried in the dust of a world that called him traitor. What justice blooms in a war where gods trade souls as currency? The eternal conflict devours its own children, each victory a dirge, each peace a prelude to ash. He saw the ledger of sins. Angels and demons bound by the same chains of want. Sanctuary, that fragile lie, had become a tomb for the innocent and a gilded cage for the damned. To preserve it was to bless the cycle. To destroy it was to grant the first breath of choice in an age without air. The Book of Cain whispers truth in the static between stars. Asterisk sanctuary was never meant to last. Asterisk Imperius cast his vote not for ruin, but for the possibility of a world unchained. A world where justice might rise, unshackled by the weight of ancient grudges. His name is etched in the silence between heartbeats of the cosmos. Not as villain, not as hero, but as the fulcrum upon which eternity wavered. The Archangel who understood that some wars must die to let the living breathe. Only the stars remember, and they burn. Was Imperius a savior or a traitor? The eternal conflict demands sacrifice. No victory, only delays. His choice ended sanctuary's illusion of peace. Now the angels who still fight, what becomes of their war? What price do they pay for battle without end? The next dossier reveals their unyielding struggle.